You know, every time I think I've seen it all. I think that Death Battle can't possibly surprise me anymore. Yet every single time Death Battle shows me that I should never, ever, ever underestimate these guys. Because just when I think that there's no more tricks left in their bag, when I think that there's no possible way they can sink any lower, they always find some way to do so. And I know I implied in my last video that I thought that the upcoming Death Battle was not worth ranting about, but after meditating on it and upon the revelation of certain information, oh no. No, I am not letting you get away this time, Death Battle. You just constantly find new ways to impress even me. And really, that's the main reason why you and me are destined to do this forever, Death Battle. You really are my Joker. And I definitely would say that life for me would be boring without you around. And I feel deep down inside, I think you feel the same way about me. We really do complete each other, don't we? But that's enough of that. Let's get to what you all are probably wanting to hear. Me rant about how Death Battle is once again out of their fucking mind. And I know what some of you are thinking. How can it get any worse than Ruby versus Maka? You know, a dead man's matchup that was so bad and dark that it made even me feel physically and emotionally uncomfortable even talking about it. Well, Death Battle decides to flex just how egotistical they are, just how arrogant they are, just how up their own ass they are. It is not exaggeration to say that Death Battle is quite literally high off of their own farts. Now, what can I possibly mean by that? Well, I'm going to put this picture up right here, and I'm going to give you 2 seconds to tell me exactly what's wrong with this image, because I have a feeling it should take no longer than 2 seconds for anybody, even the most dim-witted Death Battle fanboy, to see exactly what's wrong with this.
Oh my god, what the fuck is this? Oh my god! What the fuck is wrong with you?
If you guessed that's not Blade, then how very astute of you. Because yes, apparently we have been given full confirmation that this is the live-action Death Battle we were speculating about. And looking back at it with 2020 hindsight vision now, I almost wish that it was Light versus Columbo. Because this is so much worse than Light versus Columbo, and the most obvious reason should be apparent to anybody that Death Battle is so fucking up their own ass. They think that they can replace Blade. You have the audacity, Death Battle, to think that you, of all people, can replace Blade. We all know the truth, and I am going to let the man himself explain it so you can hear it loud and clear, Death Battle, so there can be no mistake in my words about this.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Everybody knows that Wesley Snipes is Blade, and he is the only one who will ever be Blade. This isn't like Joker, where even though Heath Ledger was the best Joker, before Heath Ledger, there were other Jokers. As for Blade, there's only ever been one Blade. And maybe the only exception to that rule has been some of the animated stuff. And even then, if it came out that Wesley Snipes voice acted Blade and some of that stuff, no one would really be surprised by that. There's a reason why the new Blade movie is being marked with so much controversy and reshoots and delays, because Disney were the first ones that thought that they can replace Blade. And now, Death Battle. You have to have Disney levels of arrogance to think that you can get away with this. Seriously, Death Battle. Where the fuck do you get off thinking that you're good enough, that you're gonna be the ones to be able to replace Wesley Snipes' Blade and get away with it? Who the fuck do you think you are, Death Battle? Are you out of your fucking mind? Clearly you're out of your fucking mind. There's a reason why I call you my Joker, because you are absolutely fucking insane. Nobody in their right mind would actually want to try to pull this off and think that they can get away with it. Of all the Death Battles that you could have chosen as the live action one, you do this one? Like, again, it is a combination of disrespect and arrogance on both sides. Because ignoring the fact that this matchup is completely fucking disrespectful to Blade, like, what the fuck did Blade do to deserve this? Really? Like, so you just wanna... Is Blade just a joke to you at this point in Death Battle? Like, I don't understand. And to all you Buffy fans that are going to try to say, oh, what's wrong with Buffy? What's wrong with Buffy? How about the fact that Buffy is a niche character that almost nobody takes seriously? And even Buffy's own fan base admits that the series is basically dead and hasn't been relevant for quite some time. And I would argue has never been relevant. It has always been one of those series with a cult following. It never etched its way into pop culture legacy the way Blade has. And the problems only get worse from here. Ignoring the fact that Death Battle is arrogant enough to think that they can replace Blade. Like, the fact, Death Battle, that you didn't even have the fucking common decency to try to get in touch with Wesley Snipes is insane. And yeah, it might have cost you a little bit of money, but here's the thing. If the AVGN and even the Nostalgia Critic can get into contact with all these super famous people like Gilbert Godfrey, Corey Taylor, Macaulay Culkin, motherfucking Guar, like, get real, Death Battle. I refuse to believe that with the right connections and phone calls, you couldn't have gotten a hold of Wesley Snipes. And think about how much more legendary that would have made you if you did get a hold of him. But instead, oh, no. Our Blade is going to be the one to upseat Wesley Snipes. We don't need Wesley Snipes. We can just replace Blade. Not only that, are we going to try to replace Blade, but we're going to put him against an opponent that makes the whole thing feel like an absolute fucking joke, okay? This is the equivalent of putting Blade up against a Nickelodeon character, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is basically a Nickelodeon idea of a fucking, like, badass vampire series. Imagine a gayer version of fucking Supernatural. Imagine if you took Supernatural and combined it with Bring It On or Zoe 101. That's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. At best, it's a vampire version of Harry Potter. And before the Buffy fans come at me, that's not me making that comp. That's coming from your own fan base. Because while I don't claim to be a big Buffy fan, I am aware of Buffy, but I've only ever seen like a couple of episodes. But I have listened to conversations by Buffy fans, and that's a comp that you motherfuckers make, not me. So take that up with your own fan base. And yeah, and I refuse to believe that this is the most popular matchup, which is such a shitty fucking argument that I'm sick and tired of hearing about. Oh, well, it's what the fans want. It's a very popular requested matchup. No. Given how niche Buffy is, there's no way in hell that this was a popular matchup. No fucking way. And even if there were Buffy fans requesting this, there's no way that Blade fans were requesting this. Let's just rattle off some of the matchups that I have seen involving Blade that are much more popular and make more sense. Dante from Devil May Cry. Okay, I can kind of see that. Alucard Helsing from Helsing Ultimate. Self-explanatory. Hellboy from Hellboy. I'm not sure I fully get that one, but okay, at least it's not Hellboy versus Ghost Rider. You know what? I'll take that. Like, almost any other idea I've seen, like, Buffy is the last character I would have thought of. Like, Buffy, I imagine if she ever showed up in Death Battle, would have been, like, in some joke episode. I can remember the idea of Buffy fighting Blade was so laughable that when I saw the Death Battle cast of it, I just assumed it was a joke. And here's another thing that's really a giant red flag for me. As I pointed out in my last video, Ben Singer is apparently quite the Buffy fan and is very shocked and offended that people, similar to the Columbo situation, have to keep asking Ben Singer, who the fuck is Buffy? Because the average casual pop culture consumer doesn't know who the fuck Buffy is. And he just seems so surprised by this. You can't pull out a niche character and then be surprised by this, Ben Singer. And depending on who's writing this episode, who knows that if they're just gonna fuck over Blade just to get Buffy over, because Buffy could potentially be Ben Singer's waifu, and we've seen this song and dance time and time again. But to get even more into the matchup itself, most people seem to accept that this matchup is a fucking stomp, okay? The best you can do to make this match more fair is you have to give Buffy amps that some sources have been telling me are like not even canon anyhow. So that's not good, but here's another problem with this. Death Battle has only ever shown, and you can look at some of my past reviews of this, that Death Battle is a mixed bag at best when it comes to their live action episodes. And given what we've seen from Death Battle, this is going to be a very downgraded Death Battle. You're not going to see anything super spectacular. We have no fancy animations from Devil's Artemis or Moro to look forward to, because at least Devil's Artemis and Moro can make even the shittiest death battles at least pretty to look at. Hell, I'll give Devil's Artemis credit where it's due, because I did a bite-sized review of Maka versus Ruby, but I want to give credit where it's due. Devil's Artemis at least made Maka versus Ruby look pretty to look at. I'll at least give him that. It doesn't save the fight by any stretch of the imagination. The fight is still a fucking joke, and a really bad, insensitive joke at worst. But at least it looked nice. Here, now, Death Battle's gotta deal with choreography, acting, making sure that the actors are actually able to portray the characters, and yeah, I have no reason to believe that whatever low-level, up-and-coming, wannabe YouTube star you plucked out of wherever the fuck you found him is gonna be able to match Wesley Snipes. I feel sorry for that guy. You're giving him an impossible task, Death Battle. And then you gotta find some bimbo to be able to portray Buffy. Like, what is this? Nothing about this works. This is all just completely and utterly fucked. Like, the matchup is fucked because it's a joke, not to mention it's most likely another mirror matchup stomp, because, oh boy, here we go again. Well, let's just take two characters that are vampire slayers and have them fight each other. Because, you know, that's so fucking original. Like, that's about as original as that time that Death Battle put a vampire up against another vampire. Or a zombie survivalist against another zombie survivalist. It's fucking boring. It is not as interesting as you fucking think it is. Okay? It's just not. And there's so many more variables for Death Battle to fuck up here. Because now they don't just have to worry about the script writing and the dialogue. Now they gotta worry about, again, choreography, acting. And now they also gotta worry about special effects. And sure, you could argue that a fight like Buffy versus Blade doesn't need to be special effects heavy. And there is some point to that. But again, all that means is that you're not gonna get a super crazy fight. It's most likely just going to have a lot of hand-to-hand focused combat. Maybe you'll get a little bit of sword fighting. Maybe you'll get a little bit of gunplay. But for the most part, it's going to just be a very watered-down death battle. And when you compare this to some of the stuff we've been getting, like Bowser versus Eggman, or even Kyle Rayner versus Simone, this is just total fucking bullshit. And I'm not saying that every death battle needs to be this big operatic or reality bending thing. There is a time and a place for just a good old-fashioned sword fight or a good old-fashioned martial arts battle. But what I'm saying is, don't set your expectations too high. Because in my experience, and I think I've covered every single live-action episode of Death Battle up to this point, I can confirm that all these episodes have been mid at best. And I have no reason to believe that this one is going to be any better, especially because it's setting itself up to fail right from the get-go. And again, I cannot stress this enough, how this shows just how arrogant Death Battle thinks that they are, that they think that they can get away with this. And I refuse to believe that anybody was actually requesting this. I think only a small number of people were requesting this. And this is just one of those matchups that Death Battle just either threw into their iPod and just said, fuck it. Or, again, this is Ben Singer's little pet project. In the same way that Columbo versus Light is Liam's little vanity pet project. In the same way that Ruby versus Maka was Monty's little vanity pet project. And as we've seen, the results of that have been disastrous, and it's not going to get any better. In fact, if anything, this should discount Ben Singer from going anywhere near the fucking script. Keep that motherfucker away from the script, because I don't trust him. Now, sure, I don't have super hard evidence that Death Battle has changed the outcomes of fights just to suit characters that they like. Ben Singer has confessed to having to kill off characters that he loves, like Donatello, and there may be some truth to that. But I'm also deeply skeptical of Death Battle because they have also been known to rig fights before. And what's funny to me is, just like Ruby versus Maka, there's a bunch of people coming to my comments, my Discord, and my Twitter, and saying, yeah, this is bullshit. I'm not excited for this at all. A lot of people in my Discord are talking about how they don't even want to watch this one because of how underwhelming it is. Like I said, this is a bad joke at best, and a pretty disrespectful one when you really think about it. And at worst, it's just a boring, underwhelming matchup that's going to quickly be forgotten. Let me ask anybody watching this video, how many of the live-action episodes of Death Battle do you even remember? Because the only one I can vaguely remember was Nightwing versus Daredevil. And that was really only because of my review. But on the other end of the spectrum, there was also the Winter Soldier versus Red Hood Death Battle. And even though I think I reviewed that one, when I might have to double check through my videos and potentially re-upload that one, but I digress, I can barely even remember that Winter Soldier versus Red Hood even happened. And I'm curious, how many of you even remember those death battles? Correction, do you even remember anything that happened in those death battles? Do you remember anything about the research? Do you remember anything about the fight? Because even the shittiest of death battles will at least have something memorable about it. For example, we will always remember Goku vs. Superman for being an example of how inept and incompetent death battle can be at power scaling and research. Naruto vs. Ichigo, we will always remember as being that time that Death Battle tried to take a flame war that admittedly Watch Mojo started and not them, but they took a flame war and tried to immediately take advantage of it, fuck over a universe that really didn't deserve it, just to prop up and try to get in the good graces of the Naruto fan base. Because like I've said before, we know that Death Battle is willing to bend the knee to certain fan bases as long as it means getting certain views. And even if that means sacrificing certain characters to those fan bases, they will do it, and Bleach has been a victim of this twice now, unfortunately. And of course, Madara vs. Aizen is their masterpiece of shit. While I maintain that I'm not here to try to tell you that I think Buffy vs. Blade is the worst matchup of all time. Far from it. It's an underwhelming joke at the worst. I've seen much worse matchups. Believe me, this could have been a whole lot worse. We could have gotten Blade versus fucking Edward or some Anne Rice faggot or something like that. But even with that being said, while it's not the worst, in fact, on the shit scale, I would give this about maybe a 5 or 6 at worst. Again, I've seen much, much worse. But even though I don't believe that anything can ever be worse than Madara vs. Aizen, Death Battle definitely always seems determined to top themselves. Like, somebody seriously needs to get that shovel out of Death Battle's hands before they dig themselves into a hole that even they can't escape from. Because during my hiatus, these motherfuckers already damn near dug their own grave and died in it. And if somebody doesn't keep Death Battle in line, I think that they're going to do it again. And yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on that. I might end up reviewing this and making more videos on this, but just like right out the gate, this is just completely and utterly fucked. And again, I'm going to let the man himself sum this one up, because again, I don't think that anybody can sum it up better than Blade. Take it away.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Back again. Shady's back. Tell a friend. Guess who's back? 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 This looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, 'cause we need a little controversy, 'cause it feels so empty without me. I said this looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, 'cause we need a little controversy, 'cause it feels so empty without me. But no matter how many fish in the sea, it'll be so empty without me. Now this looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, 'cause we need a little controversy, 'cause it feels so empty without me. I said this looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, 'cause we need a little controversy, 'cause it feels so empty